Welcome everyone to Streams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim. We talk about horror movies on this show. This is October, it is the October-thon. What is the October-thon? The October-thon is us doing a bunch of episodes, a bunch of extra episodes, putting them out just about every other day in October. And Tim's cat is shoving his tail in his face, which is amusing. So,
it's my emotional support animal.
Yeah,
I need
well,
it for this episode.
You need it for this episode, absolutely. So, last week we covered Rob Zombie's Halloween. Finally getting to this part in the franchise. We've done all the previous films. Now we get to talk about Halloween 2, as in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 from 2009, which is now 9 years old, which is weird actually. I didn't. Time flies.
Jeez.
But so we're going to talk about this. I'm just going to give you the spoiler warning right off the get-go. We're just going to go straight into it. And yeah, so here we are. Obviously, if you didn't check out the last review of us talking about Halloween, Rob Zombies, we despised that film. We both rated it, I think, 1 out of 10.
Yes.
Yep.
Probably it must be the lowest score we've ever given anything, I think.
On this show, yes.
Yeah. Like, maybe we might have had, like, one other, like, 1 out of 10. But...
Yeah, probably, as Tim faced with his cat. But... Me and Connor did give a 0 out of 10 on something on Influx, so it's not the lowest score on the channel in general.
Okay.
Because we did review another Bowl movie after all. So.
Oh. That's right.
But yeah, so Halloween 2 is mostly set 2 years later, and Laurie's struggling to deal with the events of what happened to her. Annie's still around, played by Danielle Harris. In fact, Laurie's living with her and her dad, who's the sheriff, played by what's his face? Chucky.
Brad Dourif.
Brad Dourif, thank you. And yes, Michael Myers, of course, is going to show up. And there's a lot of white horses and ghost mothers and other things to talk about.
Well, at least we have everyone that was still alive, come back from the first movie pretty much, but it must suck for Rob Zombie, because I know he likes to put his wife in most of his movies, but she died in the last one, so there's no way that he could get her back for this movie.
No, because not only are we going to put in weird visions of his dead mother throughout the film, we're going to actually open the film with like a verse about the meaning behind the white horse from like a
oh yeah,
like it actually opens with this like passage from like a psychiatry book or something like that, or mythology book about what the white horse means. And then Michael, like, because we start off right after the last film where they're taking his body, and literally within a minute, you remember how the first film, within like 5 minutes, we had like a father talking about how hot his daughter's ass was? Remember that? And how crude that
right.
was?
Yes.
Rob Zombie might have topped that in the second film. He might have topped that, because within 5 minutes, we have two like morgue drivers, like who are taking the body back. And they start. One guy starts talking about how attractive the dead girl is, and how he was tempted to have his way with her, in much cruder language, might I add. I'm cleaning this up thoroughly, and I'm like, why are all his characters this awful? Why are they all sleazy, grimy dirtbags?
Because that's real life, man. Like, he's not gonna sugarcoat anything. Like, everything is bleak and depressing and skeezy and scummy, and I don't know, it's annoying. Yeah, everything just has to be so over the top and bad. I don't think any of his movies has one likable, relatable character that you can attach yourself to. Everything is just so over the top and disgusting. It's insane.
Yep, they're awful. They're all awful. And of course Michael, they actually hit a cow. The van hits a cow, and then Michael, of course, kills both of them. And then he looks down the road, because they're in like a long, countryside road. He looks down the road, and there's a white horse and his dead mother in a white dress. And he walks towards them and takes off his mask. Which, by the way, Michael Myers, for the majority of this film, has got a giant beard and long hair, and he looks like a hobo. Like that. That's what
it looks like. Rob Zombie.
He looks like Rob Zombie. Yeah. Like,
oh, is he playing himself?
Just 7 foot tall. That's the only difference. But he actually puts the mask on over this big, thick, bushy beard. For later in the movie, it's so weird. It's so strange. He looks terrible. So we got the awful
I mean,
characters back
they had to
again.
do it because, Michael Myers doesn't really have an iconic look, so they were trying to maybe see if they could come up with one for him. So
Yeah, of course, absolutely. So Laurie's living with Annie and her dad because obviously her parents are dead, and within minutes of seeing them again, remember how the introduction to Laurie in the last movie, she was finger banging a bagel in front of her mother. In this movie, they're just swearing at each other constantly. They're just like she's like, grow up, get over what happened last year. It's like, oh, f you this, f you that, arguing about breakfast. And I felt bad. Like, honestly, the most relatable character in this entire movie is probably the sheriff, Lee Brackett.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I was gonna say, actually, I don't mind Annie in this movie. Like, it sucks that she basically has to kind of, put up with her friend constantly kind of screaming at her and stuff. But
yeah, she's not too bad, but she kind of has to retaliate to Laurie, so she's kind of she's kind of fuzzy on the line. But one of the big problems. So we got the annoying characters, we got the constant swearing, and we got the just obnoxious loud. One of the big problems with this one, in that vein, in a specific way, is Laurie in this movie does nothing but whine at a really high pitch.
So it's so awful. Like in the all right, so this one back up a little bit here because I was kind of interested to watch this movie. I don't want to say excited, but I had probably seen it once before. I don't think the first one I know I watched multiple times, but this one I think maybe I saw once and was like, screw this, and then I literally remember nothing about it. So watching it again, I was like, okay, well, I'm like semi interested in this because who knows? Maybe they have all like the cardinal sins from the first movie, and the big thing giving Michael Myers a backstory and then making Laurie so unlikable and just all the annoying sex talk and stuff. All right, maybe we're kind of past that a little bit. It probably won't be a good movie, but maybe we'll just get kind of straight to killing and it'll be a little more enjoyable. But they just find so many new ways to mess it up, and yeah, it's like the only thing more annoying than the bagel finger banging Laurie from the first movie, who's talking to her parents about how people are gonna have sex with her and stuff, is this new Laurie that just is constantly screaming and hates the world. And
so she's constantly crying and complaining.
Yeah.
Honestly, the scene that might have pissed me off the most in this entire. But by the way, Margot Kidder's in this movie, and that's hard because she passed away recently, and that's just hard to see her in this piece of shit. But there's a lot of actors in this that pop up. I mean, Octavia Spencer, the Oscar nominee or winner, even maybe nominee. I don't know which one.
Yeah, Weird Al, one of my most favorite people in the world, unfortunately, is in this movie.
I don't really care about Weird Al, but
how dare you?
Fair enough. But Weird Al's there, yes. But Margaret Kidder plays a therapist, right? She's a therapist, and Laurie's in therapy. And the first scene with us, whatever. But there's a scene in the middle where she just starts crying and screams like, "I want my medication! I want my medication! Stop pretending that you care! You don't care about me! I want my medication!" I'm like,
see, Pete, you don't get it. This is just a commentary on the health system in this country and how we're all over medicated. We can't face a real problem. Blah blah blah. I don't know.
I thought you were getting confused there, because at one point Rob Zombie basically voices his complaints about how big companies are putting the small record stores out of business because the old man in the record store starts complaining about how the record industry is for shit now.
Here's the thing, Rob Zombie is I don't think I've ever met someone who has less to say but desperately is trying to say it. He feels like he keeps wanting to make these big points, and I think that's the whole thing with this movie is, you are supposed to be man, our healthcare system, man, we just over medicate people and blah blah blah, and that whole record store thing with the old timey people just constantly being hey, I don't know what the point they're making, because it seems like they're oh, we want our people to work but also be free spirits, but don't be late, but also blah blah blah.
Yeah. And here's the thing, this movie is 2 hours long. This is far too long, and there's so much that you could easily cut out. And just to go back to Laurie, I want to make this clear. In the original film, which we're going to talk about next week, The original film, Laurie is this likable protagonist who you're rooting for. She's protecting the children, and you're there for her. You want her to win. You're on her side. And in this movie, I hate the bitch. I want her to die as quickly as humanly possible, hopefully violently, because she is annoying. She is frustrating. She is obnoxious. She never shuts up. She is like everything that Laurie isn't.
Yeah, no, it's insane. And the idea of, all right, you're doing a horror sequel, you have the surviving final girl, and now them having to deal with like basically having like PSTD over this whole ordeal. Like, that is an interesting plot that you could explore, and it would be cool to maybe have her like suffering from this, but then learning to get over it and fight back and that kind of stuff. But that's not what happens in this movie. Like you said, it's just her constantly complaining and then, like lashing out. And
then Loomis's book comes out, right? We'll talk about Loomis. He's got mostly his own plot separately, but his book comes out and reveals that she's Michael's sister, and she was never told us. I actually didn't even realize she didn't know that by the end of the first movie. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, didn't they realize that in the first movie? No, okay, whatever.
Yeah, but she finds out, and oh my god, the scene where she's like, "I'm not who I am. I'm someone else. Tell your dad Angel says F you." I'm like, oh my.
I just need to go out and party and get wasted.
Again, and this is the thing. Like, I'm not saying like. I try very hard not to just hate things because they're not like they were in the original, but it's not just that. It's that she's actively obnoxious in how she is in every single way.
Yeah, because it's not like she has like actually a pretty good like support system. Like, she does have people that love her and care about her. So obviously she's been through something traumatic, and she totally has a right to feel all the stuff she's feeling. But like, at no point does she ever seem like she's attempting to really get better or to like appreciate the people that are trying to help her or anything. Like you said, it's just constantly crying and hurt. And of course, again, I think this is like a Rob Zombie thing, but the person kind of has to be a little messed up, so they have to be like, oh man, I just want to get high and I just want my medication, and like I'm broken, fix me, like like it's.
And here's the
it's
thing:
so stupid.
She doesn't even know that Michael's actually back. She's worried that he might come back for Halloween. She's got this like fear, but she doesn't actually know that he's back until like maybe 25 minutes before the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, she goes out to a party and she's like out partying for a while, and she comes back, and it's not until like way late in the movie that she finds Annie's body, and that's when she knows that Michael's back, and that's when we kind of get the rest of the movie, because for most of it no one even knows he's around. He's just kind of like killing various people that are fairly random. And here's this thing that Zombie's obsessed with when it comes to Michael Myers, and he did this in the first one, he does it a lot here. And there's a scene in particular that I'm thinking of where Flash from Batman Begins and his daughter and his buddy go out to like, oh, there's this big bum, living in our barn or whatever out here, and they go out to confront him, and they beat him to shit with like crowbars or whatever. And it's like a solid like minute sequence of them beating the shit out of Michael Myers, and he's down on the floor, and the girl's like, I'm sorry, this is too harsh, and she's like apologizing to him, and I'm like, does he want us to feel sympathy for Michael Myers? Like, what is the point of this scene? And it's like he's obsessed with this idea of, he wants the scene to be, when is Michael going to finally strike? Like, when is like that's what he wants the tension to be. He wants the tension to be, when is Michael finally going to snap and be Michael Myers and kill them? But here's the problem: Michael Myers.
It's our fault, man. Society made the monster.
Michael Myers is not that type of character, and I'm not even saying that he's not that type of character because he wasn't that type of character in the original film. Even in this film, or in the first one, he was not built as that type of character. I mean, that's not to say that he didn't do this, because remember the scene where he escapes out of the asylum with the two guards? That was the same thing. It was like, when is he going to snap? When is he going to do the thing? But Michael's not that type of character. He is always evil. He's not like.
Yeah, like
I don't get it.
Like, there's like, what you want to do, like if you do like a remake or a reboot, like there's a lot of stuff you can change, update or whatever, but there's usually like a core tenet that you kind of want to keep, that you don't want to mess with. And you know what, you don't need to do a Halloween remake, but if you're gonna do it, whatever, just like make a good slasher movie and just you just want to keep kind of that core philosophy, which is, here's the boogeyman, here's this evil shape that there's no rhyme or reason for. It
Which,
just
by the way,
is, and that's what's scary.
He's strong enough to flip a car with his bare hands in this, which is weird because by the end he's apparently dead from gunshots. And I think it's funny that the original Michael Myers was nowhere near as super strong, but seemed to always survive everything. Whereas this one is like, the Hulk, but can be taken down with some gunshots. I don't know. That was a weird difference to me.
Yeah, again, the original, that's what's interesting about it, is this subtlety of like, oh, it looks like a normal person, but for some reason, you know, it can't be stopped. As this one, it's basically looks like the Hulk has invaded this town.
Yes. So, I mean, where to even go? Let's talk about the stupid white horse. Let's talk about the stupid. Actually, let's talk about the fact that we have. So the movie opens with like a flashback to when Michael was in the hospital, right, as a kid, and his mum comes and gives him a white horse as a present, like not an actual horse, obviously, like an ornament, and because that's what all little boys want is white horses. But so there's a kid here, and here's the thing: the actor playing young Michael in the last movie was really distinct looking. He had a very specific look. This was a different kid. This was a completely different kid, and all I could think was, this movie came out 2 years later. How did he think that it was okay to cast a different kid as this role? Now, it's one thing if, like, say the kid is needed for the plot, right? Like, let's say you're doing a sequel and there was a kid main character, and for some reason the kid can't come back. Maybe something tragic happened, the kid died, whatever it is, right? And you have to recast. Fair enough, no big deal, right? That happens, and you have to deal with it. But not only do we see this kid, this actor playing young Michael in this opening like flashback, we see him standing next to the ghost of his mum, like constantly throughout the film. Yeah. He keeps showing up. We keep seeing him. There's this running theme where we see him like swap out with the adult Michael, and from Laurie's perspective later on. And all I could think was, you could just not write this in and not have to have a different actor playing the kid. But it's super distracting because he's clearly a different kid. He looks nothing like the kid from the last movie.
I don't know if like maybe he wanted Michael Myers to have a voice, so this was his way of like, oh, like we'll have these visions or whatever, and then young Michael can kind of speak.
He's got a voice. He actually yells die as he stabs Loomis at the end. Yeah.
What the Jesus.
But screw you for that as well, might I add, Mr. Zombie. Right? Even before that, he's like grunting as he's stabbing someone else. I was like, this is weird. He's making all these grunting noises. But
it's the and here's some other dumb bullshit that we can kind of get into, but it's not like just Michael, like with this stuff. Like Laurie too. Like she seems to be having like this weird white horse thing. Like at one point in the therapist's office, like I think she looks at something. It's like, oh, it looks like a white horse.
So I think blot, yeah. Well, because the implication is that they're mentally linked and they're both having the same visions. That's the point.
Stupid.
Here's the thing: this whole vision thing that it keeps coming back to. One, it doesn't feel like it belongs anywhere near a Halloween movie. Second, it's hokey and cheesy as shit. And it just it's such a terrible idea that it is baffling to me that anyone thought this would work, including Zombie. It's awful. It is absolutely awful. Every time it cuts to like her standing in that white dress, and let's keep in mind, like, this was Jason's thing, not the white dress or like actually seeing the mother, but the idea that his mom's telling him to kill people. Right. That's Jason's thing. But this takes it and then turns it into this ridiculous. No, we're going to have the ghost of Michael's mother telling him, now you can have some fun, Michael, kill people. Which, by the way, where's Michael been for 2 years? Because we skipped 2 years later, and he's grown this big bushy beard, which, by the way, I'm not convinced you can grow that beard in 2 years, right?
No.
No. For too long.
It's insane. And, like, I do feel like this is such a weird franchise for him to do, because it seems like he is interested in, like, every other horror thing other than Halloween. Like, yeah, you can say like the whole other thing, it's very Jason like. Everything feels like Texas Chainsaw, that he does, because he's always filled with like these scummy like hillbilly redneck kind of characters. I don't know, even like the visions, you could, I don't know, maybe be like, oh, maybe it's a little nightmare-esque because it has kind of like a dream-like quality to it or something. Yeah, like, everything feels non-Halloween.
if I'm going to compliment it, I guess there's less irritating
Okay,
characters in
God.
this one.
Fair, sure. Well, actually, you know what I might say is, I feel like the characters are irritating, but just in different ways. Like, okay, so you don't have these teens walking around constantly talking about sex and doing like, fake, dry humping moves and stuff. Sure, but
I
then
mean, there's a little bit of that, like, the slutty
Yeah.
one, if to just use the archetypical term.
Yeah. She has like a new group of friends that are kind of a bit very similar like to
Yeah.
her old group of friends.
Yeah,
But
which is weird because it kind of makes Annie this weird, like almost sister figure who she doesn't want to be around
Yeah.
anymore. Is, I don't know, it's the whole thing. Which, I mean, again, I can get the dramatic point of that, if you're going to do something with it, but like, even if the characters aren't being outright awful and aren't being obnoxious like a lot of them are in Rob Zombie's movies, they're typically very hard to relate to or like in any kind of way. Because they're just not really characters at that point. They're just
Yeah.
kind of there to be the friend character who doesn't really have any kind of actual personality. They're just like, her blonde friend, like who, like I don't know, personality. At least the slutty
no, you
one,
don't.
she's the slutty one at least. Like the blonde one is just kind of there.
well, they all, and I guess it's actually kind of similar to the first movie too, where they all just feel like the same exact person. Like they're all just kind of like, let's go, like let's get like messed up, like let's drink, let's party, woo, and like that
Yeah.
work, the like screw them in, like like no one ever really feels like distinct. Like I don't know. Like the only one who maybe feels like has kind of grown as a person is Annie in this one, but again, like she, I feel like you don't even really see much of her in it.
Not much of her, no. Like, I mean, she's kind of grown because it feels like she has to be almost the responsible one in the
Responsible
house,
one.
and because of that, she's kind of grown up a little bit, which kind of makes sense because you forget that she was supposed to be in high school 2 years ago. Because I mean, Danielle Harris is much older than that, so
Yeah.
it just feels natural that she's kind of in like this role now.
Like I feel we'll probably maybe go into it a little more in depth, but just while we're on the subject of characters and annoying and stuff, I think one of the biggest sins of this movie is like maybe the first thing is that you have Laurie being so unlikable and stuff, and I think the next big horrible thing they do is they make Loomis a bad guy in this. Like Loomis is an awful person, and like he wasn't he was definitely like a little
Well, I want to save that for a little bit because
Okay.
I want to stick to Laurie and Michael because I want to get to the end of their
okay.
shtick before we
Okay.
go over to Loomis, because Loomis is kind of on his own. So Michael eventually gets to Laurie, and the dead mums are like, "Bring our family back together, Michael. Bring our family back together." And then Michael, he's chasing Laurie throughout the woods, gets a couple of other people killed. Because most of the people that Michael kills in this movie are just random side characters that are only just shown up until he gets to near Laurie. There's a strip club owner that just gets killed along with a stripper and the dude that works for him. There's a whole section, and I'm like, you could cut this entire 20 minutes out.
And of course, this is just like it feels like Rob Zombie is just slapping us in the face with like, oh, like look at these like characters, aren't they so like interesting, like I don't know, like aren't they like so witty the way they talk?
God,
like
no.
they're bad people, but it's like real life, or something. I don't know. I don't know what he's trying to say, but it's not good.
I mean, maybe it's a reference to Hell in H2O that the strip club owner wants to dress as Frankenstein's monster while he has sex with a stripper.
I don't even remember that being a thing in Halloween H2O.
Well, remember in Hell in H2O, the compare, like, Jamie Lee
Oh,
Curtis
they're
is-
talking
is-
about Frankenstein.
Yeah,
and,
she's teaching
yeah,
about
yeah.
the book, and it relates to the plot because she's like Victor, that she wants to turn around and kill the monster. Which, that's the thing with Laurie. If you want to go through the story where she's scared of Michael, and then her arc over the course of the film is that by the end she's going to like, you know what? No, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to face my fears. Like that could be something, but she doesn't do that. She's just whining and
Okay.
crying until the end.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like again, like there's an interesting story, that you could tell there, and like, yeah, like having like anxiety attacks and like and stress because of this big ordeal. Like that's a very real thing and something that could be interesting. But like Zombie just doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't have
No.
any tact or subtlety or
No idea.
knows how to develop a character. So it just is awful in this
Yeah,
movie the way
it's
it's
just-
presented.
It's just loud and annoying. Like the sound of her voice
Yeah.
was making me like just like, oh my god, like this high pitched whine is like, stop it now. And so the ending of the movie, you know, Loomis comes up and he's trying to like, you know, redeem himself, and we'll get to his plot in a bit, but like, you know, so they all die. He gets killed. Well, actually, first of all, Michael gets shot to shit. Right? They all shoot Michael, and then Laurie gets up to finish. She actually picks up the knife and goes to kill. So they're basically doing the end of Halloween 4. The idea that now she's going to live, like the evil of Michael Myers will live through her, right? So we're going to have Laurie now be the killer, and she goes to stab Loomis, and they shoot her to shit. She doesn't die though, because the movie ends with her in like an asylum, and you get this sad music playing. As the camera comes in, and she looks up and she sees like young kid Michael with the horse and the dead mum, and she smiles slowly, and that's when we cut to black. That's the end of his Halloween sequel, is that Laurie becomes the killer. And again, I'm not necessarily opposed to the idea, because I do actually like it in Halloween 4 quite a bit, this idea that it passes on to a kid in the family. But I think it works because it's a kid, and it's kind of like, you know, when Michael first snapped and started killing people. In this movie though, it comes out of completely nowhere.
Yeah. No, yeah, there's absolutely like no reason for it.
There's no reason. And in Halloween 4, I mean, it's not like there's a lot of build up to it, but it's kind of the implication that once Michael quote unquote dies, it passes on to her in some way. This is why he was so obsessed with her. In this one, like, they're just like, Michael's just determined to get her back into the family, as it were, and then all of a sudden, like she just becomes the killer. She just becomes him.
Yeah. It's super stupid, and it's also like super cheesy, because yeah, she like looks directly at the camera and kind of smiles like a, you know, she might as well say like, you know, like see you next time or something, like, or some dumb thing like that.
Well, it is. It's ripping off the end of Psycho. This is Norman Bates.
Yeah. No, yeah. Again, it's he doesn't have like an original bone in his body. I'm sorry to say, but also super weird. I don't know if you noticed this, but this ending scene, they're like, it starts off, you know, in the mental hospital, and it's like this like really long white hallway that is just like, you know, like getting closer and closer to her, like in her bed and stuff on her room. But it's weird, because I was like, wait, I don't understand, is this a hallway or is it a room? Because it's like super long, looks just like a hallway, but then you get to the end and it's like...
Let me tackle this, because I know what some people who are fans of this might say. They might say that this isn't real. This is like, she's died with them. She's died with Michael, and this is just her being accepted by her family, you know, wherever they go, right, after death.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Why is she in an asylum in her afterlife, or whatever you want to call this then? At what point?
Yeah. Either way, it's stupid.
Either way,
I'm
it's
sorry.
stupid, yeah. Even if it's not real, right, which is a fair point to make if you think it's not real, it's still stupid. It's still a terrible ending. I hate it. I hate it with every fiber of my being. It's garbage. Everything with a stupid horse, with the mum talking to Michael. Like, this is the thing. The only time Michael Myers feels like Michael Myers in this movie is the dream sequence near the start. In the
sure.
hospital.
Like, that actually thought, you know, again, not that I was like excited or thought it'd be a good movie, but this opening kind of sequence with her in the hospital, I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. So they're doing like the, you know, Halloween 2 thing, and it's in the hospital, he's going around killing people, and then I was like, oh, he might even like kill Laurie, which could be interesting, because then I thought, oh, maybe they'll shift focus to like Annie or something, will be the main character, and I was like, all right, this again probably won't be great, but maybe be a little interesting.
Honestly, it's the only time in the movie where I actually kind of like some of the stalking sequence, you know, when he's actually like all this stuff with him standing in the rain, following her and looking for her in the little room. It actually almost felt like a Halloween movie. Like, it almost did. Like, it was kind of hitting there. And then she wakes up and it turns out it was a nightmare. And all I could think was this was Rob Zombie, like, almost saying F you to the audience, because he's like, here, that's kind of what you want. That was me trying to do the actual Halloween chase sequence. Now I'm going to do my thing with a stupid white horse.
Jesus.
And your obnoxious characters. Which, by the way, did you notice that there was no Halloween theme in this one?
I didn't notice it, but that is unforgivable.
Yeah, there was no Halloween music of any kind. Nothing from the score was there. Which just, again, it feels like he didn't really want to make a Halloween movie ever. Like, he wanted to do his weird thing, his weird, unique, well, not that unique, but, you know, his weird concoction of different horror ideas. That's what he wanted to do. And you know, and yeah, so you mentioned Loomis. You want to talk about Loomis?
Yeah, I just like. I mean, I don't know if you agree with this, but and I kind of feel like he's like, I don't know what you'd say, maybe like the heart and soul of the original franchise, or maybe like the corner, maybe like kind of like the cornerstone. Like, you know, he has such like a through line, and you know, he's such like a, you know, an interesting and kind of beloved guy that you follow and that you root for in the other movies. And then this, I just feel like they did such a disservice to the character and they made him like a piece of shit. Like,
well, they do.
know,
I mean, I'll defend it to a point, and not so much to say that because I think it's terrible. Don't get me wrong. In this movie, I think it's terrible because I think it's mishandled. But I don't necessarily dislike it just because it's not the Loomis from the original movies. Because again, I think it's worth saying, when is it not working because it's just not what we like from the original, and it's just because it's different.
Okay, fair.
And when is it not working because it's actively not achieving what it's trying to do? And with this, so the whole idea here is that Loomis has got another book out. He's talking about Michael. He's revealing that Laurie's Michael's sister. He's doing the press tour. He's awful to his agent. He's awful to everyone who's around him. He's flirting with people. He's demanding tea. He's going to talk shows. And everywhere he goes, there's someone confronting him about him being an asshole. He's like, hey, you're profiting off these people's misery, off these people who have died. He was at a talk show, and there's like a late night talk show, kind of like a Kimmel or something like that. And the guy's like, hey, but what about these, you know, these other psychiatrists that have accused you of this and that? And he's like furious about it. And the whole point is, this is what the arc is supposed to be. It's supposed to be that he is profiting off all of this misery. He's profiting off the murders of these people. And by the end of the movie, he wants to redeem himself to come and try and save Laurie and stop Michael, right? That is actually not a terrible idea. As far as the plot goes, right, I can see that working. Okay. I can see the plot being that he's awful, he is profiting off of this, he's trying to convince himself that he's not, that he's doing nothing wrong, but ultimately he realizes and agrees that, you know what, yes, I am, and I have to redeem myself. I have to, because there's that scene where the father of one of the dead girls from the first movie comes in to the book signing and tries to shoot him, and they have to fight him off. And as an idea, this is all fine. The problem in this movie is that he never has that moment where he realizes that he is guilty of this. He just hears on the radio that Michael Myers has got Laurie kidnapped, and he just makes the choice then to go and try and save her. There's no like actual moment where he realizes that he's been an asshole. The story has potential. It is not achieved in this film.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I guess similar to like Laurie's character, where yeah, again, not a bad idea to try to have this character getting over this trauma, but again, it's just not handled well, and there's never any evidence of like them overcoming and growing. And
both Laurie and Loomis in this movie, they don't have arcs. They have straight lines, and then right at the last like 2 minutes of the movie, there's a switch. Yeah, the light switch is getting flipped. That's all it is. That's what they've got.
And like also like, you know, I feel like I guess it's not like inconceivable that he might write a book and then get some press and kind of become an asshole from the first movie, but he definitely didn't feel like as much of a jerk in the first movie. And then it's also super weird that like that he would be that famous. Like like when was the last time you heard of like like there's a lot of books written about serial killers and documentaries about serial killers, but like when was the last time you heard like the name of like the therapist or the author of these?
Fair. I think what's weird about this is that because it's Malcolm McDowell, he actually suits playing the asshole better. He actually is better, and he's probably better in this movie than he is in the last one, just because it feels more natural for him to be this diva almost to everyone around him. Is that right for Loomis? Probably not. But again, I can see the arc. I can see what what the attempt is here. It just fails miserably at doing it. So I don't want to just sit here and say, oh, it's not the Loomis that I know. It's not Donald Pleasence's Loomis and the character he's supposed to be. All right, I'll forgive that and say, okay, it's going to be its own thing. But it doesn't achieve what it's trying to do. It still fails miserably. And he doesn't even know that Michael's alive and back until that moment, like, again, right before the end of the movie, which, by the way, is it a flash? Because he hears about this on the radio, and then it cuts to him arriving at the scene, the hostage situation. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, obviously when you have a cut in a movie, there can be, like, time in between the cut, but and often there is. But this one feels weird because he hears it on the radio, or he sees it on TV actually, that the helicopter's already above the shed that Michael's got Laurie in. Like, how long is Michael holding Laurie in that shed with police standing off outside? And he just appears in the very next shot, like coming up behind, and you know the sheriff's like, "I'm going to kill you. You revealed everything and got my daughter killed, you bastard."
Yeah. It's, it's so bad.
It's so bad. Like, I feel like the first one I hate a little bit more just because it's more directly like bastardizing like everything from Halloween.
Yeah.
This one is more ridiculous and it's laughably bad. But I still hate it. It's still absolute trash.
Yeah. Oh, it's awful. And yeah, I feel like I probably hate him about the same amount, but like, I don't know, in different ways. Like,
yeah, that's fair.
It's hard to, I guess, yeah, if you really had to rank them, probably, first one would probably be a little worse because it just has, that way too long, like half of the movie origin for Michael Myers, which it is hard to top that in terms of awfulness, but there's so much like dumb crap going on in here, and it's awful.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem with the movie is that it's not until the last like 20 minutes that anyone even knows that Michael's a problem. Which, and you're going to tell me, like, but what about other slasher movies where, that's kind of the whole thing, is that the killer will slowly pick people off one by one, and then the final girl will discover this like 20 minutes before the end, and then the final big chase will happen. Like, yeah, no, that's a fair point. But the difference in those movies is that the killer's killing off the characters of the main group, typically, right? And it feels like it's sort of like closing in. Here, it feels like Michael's just killing characters from like just random characters in a subplot that have nothing to do with the main cast until he gets to like Annie's house again, about half an hour from the end. Like, up until that point, everything with Michael feels like just a separate subplot.
Yeah, no, it's all these completely random people, and then at one point the movie kind of seems like the movie just decides like, oh, we should probably have some more main characters, and then we get introduced like to the friends and stuff, and then it's they're taken out pretty unceremoniously.
Also, his method for picking who he's killing is kind of weird, and also the order he does it in, because he kills the friend who's having sex with the guy in the van, right? And that's outside the party that Laurie's at. And then in almost the very next scene, he's at the Annie's house and he kills the cop who's guarding Annie. And I'm like, I know that we joke that Michael Myers can teleport, but this felt especially bizarre to me, because what's the distance between the party and the house? Because they have to drive here, so it's at least a little bit away. And then on top of that, he comes out from behind a tree that the cop just walked past. And I'm like, this guy's 7 foot tall. He's a tank. It felt weird to me that he wouldn't catch that. But again, there's more of those awful, like when Annie's getting chased, it turns into this freeze frame of like,
oh yeah,
all these freeze frames of her, like, different parts of her getting killed. It was, I don't know, there was some weird techniques getting thrown around just randomly at this part of the movie.
And it feels like all of a sudden, like, Zombie is like, man, I got the best idea. This is gonna look so cool.
It's like, it's one thing if you establish a style like that for the first kill, and then you do it for every kill, and it's like, okay, this is your style. This is what you're doing in this movie.
Yeah.
But just randomly these freeze frames. No, this is garbage. Once again, it's garbage. I cannot get over. Like, I hated Laurie in the last one, but I hated her even more in this one. Like, she is so whiny and screeching and screaming. Like, and obviously it makes sense for a character going through this to be emotional and be upset and maybe even, like, be voicing her concerns, shall we say. And that happens in other movies, but this is easily one of the most annoying, like, characters like this I've ever seen. Like, she is infuriatingly painful to sit through.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's like, it seems like she's been through such a horrible thing, but then she also has like the support system that is trying to help her, and it's really annoying to see people not really trying to accept that help, and then again, just even when she's in therapy, like, she can't have like a normal therapy session. She has to be like screaming at her therapist, and it's so over the top. Once you get the therapist screaming too, being like, "I want to help you," it's like, come on, this is crazy.
Yeah, there's no subtlety. Like you could almost get the drama spin-off of Halloween about dealing with the stress afterwards, but
sure, yeah.
But it's just the Rob Zombie's not the writer director to pull that off, I don't think. And here's the big problem with the whole white horse thing, and the mum saying, bring her home, kill. Now you can have some fun, Michael. Again,
because everyone thinks of Michael Myers as this character that just wants to have fun. Like, oh yeah, he kills because it's fun to.
Yeah, you've never got that impression. But the big problem with it, though, is kind of going back to the big problem with the first movie, is that it's explaining his thought process and why he's doing what he's doing, when the beauty of Michael Myers, the beauty of The Shape, was always, there's no reason. We never knew why he was doing what he was doing. That was the scary part. But now we're inside his head, seeing him, like, look at his dead mum, talking to him, like...
Yeah.
All of the mystery, all of the intrigue is just gone.
Like, could you imagine if like Rob Zombie did Jaws or something, and just have like a young shark in the beginning getting like beat up by fishermen, and then having visions of its like shark mother telling her to go eat those people and stuff? Like, it would be insane.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then I bet you as well, if in Rob Zombie's Jaws, there'd be at one point someone would say, and we shall call this shark Jaws.
Yeah.
Like, he'd get named Jaws, I guarantee you.
Oh, yeah. Because like, someone would be like, this shark is obsessed with Jaws. Like, oh, at the beginning of its life, something happened to its jaws, and it seems to be, like, fascinating with the jaws of its victims. And yeah, there would be like no like subtlety or anything to it.
Hey, you're here on your own. We'll call you Solo.
Yeah, I can't defend that.
No, you can. You cannot defend that stupid scene. Not that I even seen it. I just heard about this scene, but I know it's stupid.
Yeah. And overall, I like Solo, but there was a couple of things like that in the movie that are just like, oof, I can do without this.
Yeah. This movie, I mean, both these movies they're an exercise in lacks of subtlety, poor taste, obnoxious, just screaming over and over again at the camera, like what the point is of the scene. And obviously, literally in some scenes, we've got Laurie just screaming at the camera, but like just everything's there's no subtlety, there's no tension, there's no sense of pacing, there's none of this. These are just poor filmmaking on top of just bastardizing like the original films.
Yeah,
everything about it is just rough, and I feel like watching the original again next week is going to be like is going to be like this real breath of fresh air. Though, but this watching that after these is just going to feel like, man, the restraint, the the art of just like following someone through a scene and setting someone else up behind them, and the payoff to the build up, and all these things that make Halloween Halloween. And then there's this, which is, hey, tits.
Basically, yeah.
Stab.
Never have I felt like so assaulted by a like filmmaker's vision. Like,
oh god,
it's it's great, for people to have like distinctive styles and everything, but it feels like he's just like throwing it at you. Like it's not for you to absorb and to understand, like, oh, this is what this person liked. It's like everything has to constantly be like, hey, I like this thing, like let me shove it in your face. Like, Jesus, man.
Yeah, there's nothing left to interpret. It's just
it's like, oh, like, should we, oh, like, I get that you like this stuff, but I don't know if it works for the story. Maybe we should take it out. But like, well, no, because I like it, so why should it not be in there? But like, well, just because you like something doesn't mean you have to make like the whole movie out of that.
He's the Michael Bay of horror movies.
I mean, I feel like that's giving him too much credit. Like, he's
the Michael Bay of horror movies, but he's less talented.
Okay, that's fair.
Which is, a pretty rough insult at the best times.
I don't. Yeah, I'm not like a fan of Michael Bay's at all, but I can still watch his movies, and some of his movies I get some enjoyment out of it.
Oh, like, I mean, yeah, the Rock's a pretty fun action movie, like,
Yeah.
Like Bad Boys 2 is overlong, but it's kind of a hoot in places.
Yeah.
It's not a good movie, but it's...
Well, certainly, but yeah, like Zombie, there's and not just these movies, but like every movie he's done, I get like absolutely no joy out of them.
Yeah, I despise this with every fiber of my being. Is absolute garbage. This is a little bit short on the first one, but I feel like a lot of the problems are the same that have carried over. And we've talked about all the new problems, all the added sequel shit that was put in there. But again, I can't get over just how much Michael was walking around with this giant beard with a he's got a hood up. He's got a hood. If at one point he's got like a hood over the mask, and it's just kind of like, what are we doing here? And do you know what? They dirtied it up so much that you could barely even tell it was white most of the time.
Oh yeah, no, like there were times where I just figured he wasn't wearing a mask, and then I was like, oh no, I guess he is. Yeah. I tell you one thing that did make me happy, because the movie is still long, like it's like 2 hours, and then like
the credits were 8 minutes long, so it was actually like a nice surprise.
Yeah, so once they popped up, I was like, oh nice, like I get to end this like 10 minutes earlier than I thought. So
yeah. Cool. And obviously it's worth mentioning we both watched the unrated cut, because much like the first one, you have to go out of your way to find the theatrical cut now. The unrated one seems to be the one that's in circulation, the one that goes on the streaming services, the one that gets aired on TV, that kind of thing. It's the main one for whatever reason, which is probably unfortunate because it's no doubt longer than the theatrical cut. But here we are. So it's bloated, it's a mess, horrible characters, obnoxious, doesn't succeed at what it's trying to do, is a complete bastardization of everything that made Halloween, much like the first one was. Garbage. Like I will never watch this again. This is it. This is the second viewing. This is the last viewing. It's not happening again, Tim. What would you rate this out of 10?
So again, we gave, we really didn't like the first one. We gave that a 1.
I feel like this really didn't like is actually putting it too softly.
Oh no, definitely, hated, despised, whatever. No, this one I think maybe, again, if you're comparing them to the first movie, maybe this one might be a little more interesting. Maybe I don't know. There might be some stuff people like more, but I feel like I am just as annoyed and I hate it just the same as the first one. Like maybe the hate is for like different parts or different reasons than the first one, but I mean I feel like it's really no difference between both of these movies, so I'm just gonna give it the same score. I gotta give it a 1 as well.
Yeah, as much as I can sort of objectively say, well, there's less obnoxious characters technically, and like I can at least see what he was trying to do with a couple of the arcs that don't really exist because he doesn't know how to do an arc. I'll be like, okay, fine, but still, it's a 1 out of 10. It's garbage. Yeah, I hate it. Every time it cut to that stupid horse and the stupid kid. Which, by the way, Loomis at one point he does like he's in a presentation, and he's got there's like footage played of Michael on the screen, like of an interview, and it's after the mum's committed suicide because he's telling her, "Oh, your mum's died," and he's trying to explain it to him, and Michael's talking to him. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but hadn't he already stopped talking by the time that she'd committed suicide in the first one?
That sounds about right.
I feel like because she commits suicide after he kills the nurse, and I feel like he'd already stopped talking by that point. But he was quite chatty in this video clip. That's all I'm saying.
That's very fair.
I'm just saying consistency would be nice. But anyway, it's not even the same kid, so I don't even know why I'm complaining. But that's Halloween 2. Misery, pain and misery. I hate it so much. But hey, so you can let us know what you think of Halloween 2 2009 in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV if you want to support the channel and the show and everything we do here and keep the horror stuff coming. Especially, in a month like this where we're putting out like 4 or 5 episodes a week. By all means, do go and have a look and see what you can do. And if you can't, don't feel too bad. Watch the ads on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. All that stuff does help and support. So thank you very much. We love you loads. Keep watching scary movies. Check out our dedicated Streams After Midnight Twitter at Screams Midnight. You can do that. And of course you can get me at Weebly89. You can get Tim at Tim Vergulish, and that is us. But otherwise, thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we'll see you next week for the original masterpiece that is Halloween. Goodbye, guys.